Now that a lot of people are working from home, tell me how AI can help managers increase productivity, focus, and flow amongst their staff.
Yeah, so this has actually been a huge pain in the neck for ages. Like even before the working from home and the pandemic and managers feeling detached from their employees, which is something that's happening. We've had many situations across the board, whether it's in engineering or sales or even back office or whatever, where managers sort of had a little bit of feeling of insecurity because the best way to know whether your staff is working and doing its work is to hover, and that's what a lot of managers, especially newer managers, tend to do is like, I know you're here, I know you're working. I don't know whether it's great work or not, but I know you're working because your butt's in the seat,
Where they can physically see them in the past at an actual office, but now almost everyone is working virtually now.
That's right. Just about every knowledge worker is working in some arrangement, is working virtually. It might not be every day anymore, but we're still in a place where, maybe that manager and that employee just never see each other because they've chosen days to go into the office that don't coincide as well, right?
Correct.
So now the manager is super insecure and unaware of whether or not things are getting done until possibly it's too late. Maybe they're trying to now manage to an outcome and that outcome never gets there because, the 3 to 4 weeks that happen in between when you were expecting stuff to get done by your staff, maybe nobody did it, Hopefully that's not what's happening to most managers, but that could happen right now. So what are managers doing? I mean, a lot of them are using the tools that the organization has and trying to manage through proxy on that. Imagine you're a large organization with Microsoft Teams, or you're smaller because today we're talking more about smaller businesses. So maybe you have Slack or some other version of messaging. And those tools will tell you when people are online. You'll see the green dot meaning you're there. A lot of managers are like, okay, well, I'm managing through proxy. I know that the green dot is on, which means you're available, and I believe you're working. I don't know the outcomes, I don't know what else is going on, but I believe you're working, right? So, I mean, there's a fallacy there and whatever. And now you get to a point where several weeks and months go by, and you may not have been watching for your staff, and, the work that they've done has sort of fizzled off or has not been as optimal, and now it reflects on you because you have a manager as well who's going to talk to you about your performance, and your performance is largely your staff's. So what do? I mean, that's the big problem. And like the solutions that have existed have been pretty invasive and, really looked at every keystroke and every mouse movement that people were doing and trying to monitor everything about them. Employees obviously don't want to have everything monitored about them. So what we've actually done is we've flipped that on its head, and rather than give absolutely everything just to the manager, we focus a lot on the employee with this. We instead give the employee as much data as possible, and we mirror that data to the manager. There's nothing hidden from the employee. The employee has access to just about everything about themselves, not the department obviously, that the manager has access to. And the employee also can work with the manager within our tool set to craft the way that their tasks and workflows actually occur, so that there isn't this concept of you're not working on the exact thing that I told you to, so now you've been a bad person. It's really, the conversation gets flipped on its head towards, you're not working on the exact thing I told you to, why? And then you as the employee say, I found a better way, this is the better way, the outcome is still the same, and I've cut out an hour of time. So it gives you the ability to have these conversations with your manager.
So it's very transparent, and I think you brought up a great point. I think it's that transparency, the trust, and the relationship, right? Because especially if you're not able to see each other face to face, you need to really establish that relationship virtually. And a lot of times, this is where a lot of companies or people struggle. People, they like to interact, right? So I think this helps build trust, and everyone's aware of what's happening.
That's right. And in terms of what's happening, as you may have heard in Canada, and in Europe broadly as well, there's now this notion of right to disconnect. So that being the fact that employers are supposed to have a policy that allows the employee to not be online and be available so that they can live their life, basically. So this is trying to solve a little bit for work-life balance, and we've seen throughout the pandemic that there's been a lot of instances where people are asked to do work at all hours of the day. So we've actually built that into the tool so that managers and employees can set up the way that they work and understand what hours they are working. So like that, they'll just be flagged that they're outside of company policy, and they'll have a chance to fix it so that it doesn't get to a place where every employee is now outside of company policy and you have an actual issue. It's very possible that the employee logged on and did some work and they chose to do that rather than a manager actually talking to them about it. It would be logged, but it wouldn't be logged as you did something terrible. It's like, just explain it again. It's again about transparency, right? Yeah, the product itself is called Kunin AI, and it had originally been seeded and built by 1000ml for our teaching and training, and then it was spun off to become its own company.
That's very cool. I think a lot of, not necessarily just small businesses, but many organizations will definitely benefit from this type of tool.
That's right, yeah. We've seen the most success with this tool and the most uptick or interest really from larger organizations, but generally any thought workers who are doing at least, a big portion of their work on a desktop. And now that starts to include salespeople too. They used to be road warriors, but guess what? Even salespeople are on Zoom now. Even salespeople, which traditionally you had trouble measuring their efficacy and output outside of how many sales did you make, you now have the opportunity to measure them as well.